I'm just so happy to have you here today. There are so many amazing people that I meet everywhere I go. And if I'm not meeting them live, I'm meeting them on a Zoom call, or it may be a bill collector, or it may be somebody that I met, just asking a question. And when I met you and I heard your story and I heard all the amazing things that you've done in your life and all the things that God used you for, I like, you know what? I got to have my sister on this podcast with me. And I'm telling you, Chanel Dickerson, you are awesome. You are amazing in your own right. And God has used you to do some amazing things. And this is just the beginning. So welcome to Your Gift Will Make Room for You with Cheryl T. Ricks. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Cheryl, for having me. It is an honor to be here with you. When I met you, I could feel your energy off of the screen. I mean, how is that possible? It is. With God, all things is possible. And I could feel it. I could feel it. So I was excited when you reached out to me and asked me to be a guest on your show.
It is so awesome. We don't know who God going to bring us before. We don't know who God going to bring before us. But I do know that all of our steps are ordered of the Lord, and He's always making divine connections. But you have to be conscious that everywhere we go, there's a missing piece to the puzzle that you will discover. There's a person that has the gift, talent, and ability you need to do the thing that God has called you to do. And it's like they don't mind helping you with whatever it is that God has called you to do. And I'm telling you, just listening to your story and all the things that God has used you for thus far, and then you still got some living, you got some work to do, I mean, not work, but you still got things that God is calling you to do for His glory. And I just want you to just kind of introduce yourself and tell us, what are you doing, what's going on, and how has God allowed you to use your gift, talents, and ability to serve the world?
All right. Thank you so much. As Cheryl mentioned, I am Chanel Dickerson. I am a retired assistant chief of police from the Metropolitan Police Department in Washington, D.C. I spent over 30 years, most of my adult life, in law enforcement. So I retired June of 2022. And after retirement, I have to admit, being a woman in law enforcement, it was actually liberating, but terrifying. I've spent most of my life in law enforcement, and now I'm embarking on this new journey. And I didn't really know where to start because my goal was always to become a chief of police, right? And so I don't know if I'm done with law enforcement yet, but I'm in the next chapter of using the gifts that God has given me to help women and girls. Because as a woman who was once a girl, we have limited beliefs and self-doubt. Right. And so I want to teach women and girls strategies to unleash their confidence so they can be able to dominate their careers, finances, relationship, education. So we will stop as women having these unhealthy comparisons with other women, right? With anybody, actually, but definitely with other women. So I started my own consulting, speaking, and coaching business, Chief Chanel Dickerson, LLC, the home of Chief Chanel Speaks. And I'm doing just that, what I explained. And right now, let me just go back a little. Like, I started participating with an anthology back in October of last year, and it's titled Unapologetically Brave. With 14 other women, we collaborated to show our strength and resilience in life. Right now, I have another anthology that I wrote a chapter in, and that will be coming out in June, titled Prisoners of War in the Mind. Right? The mind is powerful. What a man thinketh in his heart, so is he, right? And so you have to be careful about the negative thoughts in your head. Now, it's not my last project, but it's the last of the three for right now, is my anthology for ladies in law enforcement, Uncuffed Voices. It is a collection of stories from women in law enforcement. They're active, retired. Some have worked and moved on to other careers before retiring. But we're sharing our story to inspire the next generation of female police officers.
Wow, that is phenomenal. That is phenomenal. See, that's what I'm saying. It's like we have to get out of this box that people put us in as women. We have to get out of this box of I need somebody to give me permission. I need somebody to validate me and tell me I'm good enough. I need somebody to say that this is the limit I can have, or this is the limit I can't have. And it feels so good when we get free in Christ, when we can actually be all that God says we can be, that we allow him to use us for his glory, allow him to show us what he put in us so that we can make the world a better place for all of us to live in. And that is just phenomenal. That is just so phenomenal. So with all those years as a law enforcement person, how did your gifts work? How did they play out in your career as a law enforcement officer?
It allowed me to humanize every person who I encountered, because law enforcement officers, we meet people at the most chaotic moments in their lives, right? And so oftentimes we see so much, we can become desensitized until we are not looking at the human being as a human being. Right. And so I was able to always humanize. Like, I never judge anyone. I always meet people where they are. I said actually that I think I was empathetic to a fault, because I'm not able to compartmentalize. Like, I hold it in my heart of the things that happen to people. And I was able to connect with people in the community to bring resources to marginalized community. I understood my role as a law enforcement officer. It's easy to know the law, and if someone breaks the law, to arrest a person. But it is the right person to go into a community and figure out the root causes of the problems in the community. And I know that my gift from God to allow me the ability to be able to communicate with people, to be empathetic and show compassion, to have people to trust me in the community and know that I am there to do no harm.
That is just so wonderful. And isn't that what the world is missing? Every person needs to know that we all human beings. We got flaws, we have things that need to get better about all of us, but we all wonderful and fearfully made of God. And we all need it. We all necessary. We all have value. We all have worth. We all have something that quite a few somebodies need from us. And I think if the world could just, realize that outside of the color of our skin, the textures of our hair, the size of our body, the shapes of our noses and lips, if we can just realize under all this outer stuff that we see, that we all human beings, we all have red blood. We all need the same things that each of us need. We all have the same hopes. We all have the same pain. We all have the same joy. I mean, if we can just say, you know what, this person before me is not just a certain kind of person, but this is another human being. And I need to connect with my humanity. I need to connect with the human being in this person. Let that person connect with the human being in me. Because when we do that, all these things that we use to separate us, all these things that make us abuse and mistreat and judge and make feel like some are worthy, some are unworthy, all that stuff would go away. And then when the scripture tells us, to love God with all his might, all our might, and all of our strength, and love your neighbor like you love yourself, then we can start loving our neighbor like we love ourselves, because we will have love for our neighbor because we love ourselves. So part of being out in this world, especially the world the way it is now. I mean, I don't know how old you are, but this is like my 6th decade. So I've seen a lot of things. Yeah. And there's been a lot of times throughout my 60 years, 64 almost years of living, that things have been from one decade it was this, the next decade it was that, and so on and so on. And now we're in this decade. And then every decade has been different. And it's evolved into this new kind of thing that, there's a reason why we're alive and being believers in Christ at this season of our history. Because this is not for the shy. This is not for the weak. This is not for the people that don't have courage. You got to wake up and you got to do some things, or let the Lord do some things with you, for you, to you, and through you, that needs to be done like never it never was before. So just, being in your career and then transitioning to your next career, and recognize all the things that you gleaned on your journey, all those things that you were able to bring as a part of your wheelhouse or your storehouse, and said, you know what, I'm going to collect that gift. I'm gonna nurture that talent. I'm going to cultivate that weakness, and I'm going to strengthen that, because I got more work to do. What is it that you're looking to do now that you've spent so many years in law enforcement? What is it? Not just you share it with us what you're doing now, but what is it? What's the mission for this season of your life moving forward?
Well, thank you so much for that question, because I've been searching to figure out like what's next for me. And I know that law enforcement was my passion, right? But I believe that my next chapter is going to be for his purpose, right? What do I need to do? And I feel like my purpose, my passion was to serve people. My purpose is to save people. I have enrolled in a certification for a mental health coach, because a lot of people, and I saw that on my job throughout my journey in law enforcement, but I do have a particular focus on women and girls, is the mental health component. Because you said something that was key. You talked about that treat others as you would want to be treated, but suppose someone doesn't care how they're being treated. Suppose they don't even like themselves. So how do we expect people to like you and I if they don't like themselves, right? And it's from childhood trauma that has not been healed, and then hurt people. And that's what we do, right? And so I think that is why we are in the times that we're in, because we have lost the ability to have compassion, empathy, and just love one another. Like, we don't see another person as a human being for the violence that's in the community. If you take them out, like there are someone's mother, son, daughter, and all of those things. So what my purpose is now is to really teach people how to shift your mindset, because that is key. I mean, it sounds simple. It's to think positive, but it's really hard. I'm telling you, because there's a part of your brain that when you see things, it automatically focuses on the negative of a situation. You have to train your brain to look at a glass as half full or half empty. It's the perspective that you have on life to tell you if the glass is half full. Do you look at it and you're happy that you had a full glass to start with? Or are you focusing on the fact that half of your beverage is gone, right? And so I think that is where I am honing in now, is really teaching and developing a program, not only to teach women and girls, but I am developing a program for girls in foster care. Like, I have a passion to help girls in foster care, because predators prey on children in foster care because they believe that no one loves them and care about them. But I am going to be an advocate for children in foster care.
That is just so awesome. And you know what? A lot of the things that God has allowed me to do in my life too is just share love. Just share love. It is so many people that don't think they're worthy of love because they've been hurt. People tell them they love them, and then they make them feel like dirt when they abuse them. It's the world is starving for love. It's like that song. It's what the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's like if we could just love somebody, and it's hard to love somebody who don't feel worthy of love, but they'll never feel worthy of love until somebody give them some love and say, you can have some. You deserve some love. And when we recognize that the love that we have from the Lord, we need to share it with others. And they don't need to look like us. They don't need to think like us. They don't need to do what we do. They don't need to not like what we don't like. They don't need to do any, we don't need to have anything in common with them other than our humanity. If we would just share the love. And I'm hearing people talking all the time, but these people don't this and these people. I think, you know what? You are those people. And you may be at a different place right now, but sister, brother, you were once where they are or worse. Don't get so far ahead of yourself in your own healing that you forget that those people that are where you used to be need you to give them a handout, help them to walk through their journey of healing and restoration. And that's what's missing. Sometimes people get all that they can get, but then they don't go help nobody else. And like the word says, once the patient becomes healed, he becomes the doctor. All those other people are struggling where you used to struggle. All those other people are going through the same pain, suffering, and heartache that you went through. Go back and say, you know what? Come on, I know where you at. I know you don't know me. I know things happen, but can you take my number? If you want to talk, and we talk about what they're not doing and what they need to do, but nobody's reaching out saying, you know what, I'm here for you. Here, give me your number. Let me check on you. If you need something, call me. If you need somebody to talk to, call me. I'm available. We have to make ourselves available to people. We can't keep talking about what they ain't and what they ain't got. None of us got to where we are alone. Somebody had to come when we was acting a fool. Somebody had to come when we were misguided and misled to show us the right path. And as soon as we recognize that other people need what someone gave to us and we start giving it to people, then we'll be able to change this world and we're able to help more people, because you just can't get what you got to get for you and don't think about the next people, that's all those other people that's struggling where you used to be. And I'm fired up. I'm just fired up. Just go make a difference. One of the things that I realized about the things that we do as believers in Christ is that everywhere we go, we take the Lord. We take his grace, we take his mercy, we take his forgiveness, we take his long suffering, we take his patience, we take his unconditional love. And when we recognize that God has given all of that to us, it's a lot easier to use those things to give to others. So when you think about all the ways you do what you do, what is the one thing about you that makes you uniquely you, that God used you to do that one thing like nobody else that do it that way? What is that thing?
Oh, wow. What is the one thing? I would have to say, I mean, it's hard. It's hard for me to narrow down to one thing, because it's actually hard for me to actually talk about myself. And that's one of my weaknesses. I'm working on that, or challenges, I would say, right? But if I had to look at it and think about the one thing that I do like no other is I would still go back to my empathy. I think that I am empathetic to people beyond measure, right? And I want everyone to win in life. And when you have grown up in an underserved, marginalized community, you can either be a victim or you can be the victor. And I know that God has ordered my steps a long time ago. The men and women at the police department who elevated me to the level of assistant chief, they were just a conduit. Like, I know that when you know that God has a plan for your life, that he needed someone like me to be in law enforcement at that level in the nation's capital, to have empathy and compassion for his people. He know that people in the community were hurting. And I brought a lot of resources from DC government agencies into the community. And it's unlike no one else on the police department. It may be someone else in another city or state, right? But not in Washington, D.C. And I'm really, really willing to put my money on it that there's no one out there like Chanel Dickerson that has
You better say
community and
it, girl.
policing.
You better say it.
Right.
That's what I'm talking
That
about.
has
We're one of
community
a
policing.
kind. And
Yes,
what we do
exactly.
is different because each of us are one of a kind and unique.
Yep.
You can do
Yep.
the same kinds of things, but they ain't doing it the way you're doing. Each of us got
Yeah.
our own little twist because we made uniquely and fearfully. And that is so awesome. So how did that one thing help you transform your branch of the police department to help other officers to understand that was a pivotal thing that every officer needed to do the job that they were called to do?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. I think that I needed every officer to understand their why. right? Why did you join law enforcement? If you go back to your why in life, it doesn't even have to be in policing, it could be in life or a different career. If you hold on to the why you do that, because let's be honest, being a police officer, you're not going to be wealthy. Like, you put your life on the line to protect others. So you have to go back to your why. When you see some of the worst things, the darkest moments in someone's life, why did you sign up for this? And if you always go back there, you will have compassion to the people that you're serving. And I get it that this is a profession that people don't normally call us when their child has got a full ride to a scholarship to college, right? They don't call us for that. I would love to be the one to receive that call and come to their house and congratulate their young person, but people don't call us for that. And we need to meet people where they are. And that is one of the great qualities of a good police officer is compassion and empathy. But you have to remind people of that, because when you see the worst, and I cannot say it enough, right? If you see it, what stops you from becoming what you see every day? And so I think as society, we need to look at police officers. Who's healing them? The trauma that they see every day. And when you interact with a police officer, how much trauma have they experienced before your interaction?
That is just so. A lot of people that sign up to be who we are in our jobs, our careers, is because we can relate to that population that we serving. We suffered what they suffered. We saw it, or it was around us, or somebody we love suffered that. And so now I'm going to go make a difference in that. But we don't realize that there's a lot of bleeding people who are trying to help other people. You know, the doctor, they going through, the police person, they going through, the therapist, they going through, they haven't healed. It's so many of us, our why is, I want to make a difference so this doesn't happen to another person. But we forget that we need our healing. We forget that we need our therapist. We forget that as a doctor, we need a doctor. As a nurse, we need somebody to help us nurse us. And so it's important that we get to be a community. In the community, in the village, everybody get what they need. It's not like everybody serve and everybody take. No, you get your turn today. I get my turn tomorrow. We get ours yesterday. You get yours today. And it's like, if we learn that as a village, we all have what we need. And I know we distinguish community and neighborhoods, like, because community is usually coming together, and neighborhoods, everybody's dog eat dog, everybody on their own. But every place you're in, whether you call it a community, whether you call it a neighborhood, we all must create a good village. We need people, and it's not always just going to be the people that look like you. It's not always going to be the people that think like you. It's going to be different people. And the more different your village is, the more you have to share with one another. And just getting to a place where a village is not just the people that I have in my life, but these are people that I have hand selected, or people that God has selected to walk this season of my life with me. And a lot of times people don't create the village because they won't let new people in, or they won't go outside of their communities. They won't go outside of their neighborhoods and see that there's other people that's doing something. I remember when I was in the neighborhood where I lived, if you went 4 blocks over and 3 blocks down, it was a whole nother community. They had all kinds of things that we didn't have. They were doing all kinds of fun stuff. Like, wow, what world are they in? I didn't know this world existed. And that's the reason why we do field trips in school. Let's go other places outside of our neighborhood so we can see what's available. I once heard somebody say, until I took a trip outside of my own neighborhood and saw what was available in other places outside my neighborhood, I didn't know that I could strive for being anything more than I ever saw. We have to get out of our neighborhoods. We got to get out of just same old, and looking at the same thing and having the same kind of conversation with the same topics. We got to go find a different thing. And if you don't have it where you are, you got to seek it out, because you're not going to find anything that you don't seek. Everything that you see that's all it is. That's all it can be. But if you want something different, if you want something more, if you want something better, you got to seek after. It's got to be somewhere. I don't see it here, but it's got to be somewhere. Let me go find it. Just decide within yourself, that there's got to be more than this. There's got to be better than this. Let me go look for it. Let me search for it. And then they may come up with police officer Chanel Dickerson.
Yeah.
And then when they did get that full ride scholarship, they did call you and they said, my son just got the full ride. So how does a person go from being an officer where nobody calls them when the good stuff happens to somebody calling them when the good stuff do happen? What was it that you did in the community that people did tell you when the good stuff was going on in their lives?
Oh, yeah. I actually showing up and being out in the community. I didn't want the people in the community that I served to only see me when bad things happen, right? I just didn't want them to associate me with something bad. I wanted them to associate me just walking through the neighborhood, parking my cruiser, getting out, even at my level as a 3-star assistant chief in the nation's capital. I would park my cruiser, and my driver and we would get out and we'll walk in the community. And if I saw people, I would stop and ask them how their day was going and if they needed anything and try to connect them to other services. So I left that lasting impression. And I'll give you an example of how that came back to me, and I was not expecting it, right? In one of the communities that I had gone through earlier, and I was on the block over for another call. A lady saw me walking to my cruiser, and she was just yelling out, "Hey, officer, officer." And I really did think that it was probably something bad, because I'm telling you, like, I just came from a call, and then I just assumed that that was the case. And she said, "No, my daughter actually got a full ride scholarship, right, to a college, and we're having a celebration." And she said, "You and the officers are welcome to come by and eat with us."
Wow.
I know, right? And I
Wow.
said, she said, "But can I ask you a favor? Do you think you can get officers together and you all come by the house and turn on your lights and sound your air horns and your sirens and all that to say congratulations to her?" And I was like, "Absolutely." So I got on the radio and called some officers, and we went past the house. We lined up down the street and went by and sounded the air horn and all that. She was so excited.
Wow.
And I went by and told her congratulations. But you see how that young lady will see the police differently? She will see her family, everybody that was gathered there is going to see us differently. But I got out and then went to talk to her about her journey and gave her some safety tips on going away to college, because I know some of the challenges that young people face when they leave home to go to college. But that is the lasting impression that she will be able to tell somebody. And even if she have a negative interaction with a police officer, she's going to remember that interaction that she had with me. And that's what I wanted to do every time I met someone in the community, whether it was a positive or negative experience that they were having in their individual lives. I just wanted to leave them better than I found them.
We will be back after this message. Welcome back.
You know what? That is so huge. And there's a lot of people that lives were lost in this pandemic. Some of them because of the pandemic, some of it was, health or just tragedy, some other. A lot of people left. And I've gone to quite a few funerals. And a lot of the people that I heard spoke about the deceased person, they talked about all those ways that person showed up on a daily basis, making a difference and making people's lives better. And isn't that what we all want when it's our time to leave here? That those memories, those legacies, our presence here made a difference, and it touched lives, and it made it matter that we came this way. And I think sometimes we do have to just take a minute and say, you know what? If what I'm doing and the way I'm acting, the way I'm showing up, is this what I want to be remembered for? And I think sometimes we need to ponder a question like that, because I think it really would check us and help us to know that, Lord, you've been trying to call me on this for a minute, and I just been ignoring you. But after hearing that question come to me like that, Lord, I repent. Please forgive me. Lord, I know I fall short. I know I've messed up. I know I have not done things that please you. I know I've not served you in a way that glorifies you. Lord, I'm ready for you to help me be a better me. I'm ready to do the work. I'm ready to humble myself, and I'm ready to allow you to do what only you can do in my life. And I think, when we recognize that there are so many people in the world who need the one and only us. It could be somebody on your beat that you're serving at work. Or it could be somebody at the grocery store. It could be somebody you pass, downtown DC, and they like, you got any food? It could be anybody. And it's like you gotta be willing to be a blessing and to be a help. Give somebody something as a, what they call it, paying it forward to what somebody did for you. And a lot of things we do will not be it won't be you won't get a blessing from it right away, but every seed we sow is going to come back, the good ones like the bad ones. And so when we realize that, we just gotta show up and just be that one and only us that God has called us to be. And I'm just so excited that I have met you, and that I have experienced something in you that I experienced very early on in my childhood. When I was little, I was born in 1959. So when I was like 8, 9, 10, 11, back in those days, the police officers, they walked the beat. Hey, officer so and so, hi,
Yeah.
officer so and so. And we had a really good relationship with our police officers, and we knew them by name. Like, hey, so and so, and it was just a part of our community. And we need to get back to that again. And I know that it's so much mental health stuff going on, and you got to protect yourself no matter who you are, where you are, what your profession is. You still have to be mindful to stay safe and not become a victim of some person that's going through a bad moment in their life. But it's so nice to know that you served those 30 some years making a difference where you were. And I'm sure all those people that work with you and worked under you, they were better police officers and better people, better moms, better dads. They were better servants of the community because they came your way. And it is just it is such an amazing thing to know somebody like you who's in our law enforcement, because we see so many terrible things on the news. And there's so many wonderful people everywhere. There's one bad apple will try to spoil the whole barrel. But when you have people like you that come along and say, not on my watch. Oh, I'm going to change how you see the policing around here. Because this is not who we are. This is not our heart. Hurt people do hurt people. And when you're hurting, it's hard for you to help the way you really want to. So I'm sure that there were a lot of things that you put in place for the officers to help them with the challenges they were facing in their own life or the struggles that they had. So what kind of things that you do in your precinct or your department that help the officers to serve better by getting what they needed as human beings?
Yeah, I think that the most notable thing is our employee assistance program. Having a therapist and regularly seeing a therapist and encouraging the men and women who work with me that it's okay to not be okay, right? And it's okay to sound that, because in law enforcement, if you actually acknowledge that you needed to go talk to someone or that you were not okay, it was a sign of weakness. And definitely for a woman, because the stereotypes and the attitudes toward women in law enforcement, that's almost like a sign of weakness to say that you don't belong, right? So I used to go to a therapist at our employee assistance program, not after hours, during the hours, and park my marked cruiser. So I used to drive myself as an assistant chief, park out front of the location, sit in the lobby like every other officer that came and went there so they could see me. And I met some amazing men and women all over the department outside of just my area, because I wanted them to see that if your assistant chief could sit in the lobby and go see a therapist every other Friday, right, to talk about the things that she see on the job, that it's okay for you to do the same thing. Because until we make it mandatory for officers to have check-ins, and that was one of my initiatives, to have quarterly check-ins, that you had to go and sit for an hour in front of a therapist. And maybe one day you're not saying anything and you just sit there quietly. But if you are made to go and talk to someone for an hour, you're not going to sit there every time and not say anything. And it could be a bad call that an officer had experienced, and it's their day to go in for their hour, and they can talk about the things that happened to them. I just know that if we do not take care of each other, then we're going to still have incidents of George Floyd, right? There are incidents where Tyree Nichols, there are incidents where there are certain police officers that should not be on the force. And a good police officer do not want a bad police officer on the force. But even that good police officer, and myself included, when you see trauma every day, when you see lives lost every day, what does that do for the mental health, even of me? And that's why I had to go and sit on the couch. And I think that is notable. We have a health and well-being director that started like at the end of my career before I retired, to put a particular focus on making sure that officers are safe and healthy, not only for the people in the community, but at home. Can you imagine the police officer that deals with all of this at work and the person that they show up as at home when they get home? So it was just important to me of how to make sure that the officer was healthy and whole, because only then can we have a thriving community and the officer's family can be safe as well.
That is just so amazing. And it's like, for a long time, we saw needs, we saw issues, we just kind of tiptoed around it. It's like, everybody ignores the elephant in the room, like, that's just whatever.
Yeah.
And it feels really good when a godly person can come in a place and say, no, this is not acceptable. We're going to deal with this. I'm going to do whatever I need to do, and I'm going to deal with what's going to come with me dealing with what I need to deal with. Yeah. It took a lot of courage for you to do what you did in your career, to put those initiatives in, to make sure that the officers were healed and whole, and make sure they had their needs met and addressed the challenges that they were facing. I'm sure that you had a lot of other people like, it ain't broken, ain't fix it ain't bothering me, so I'm sure there was a lot of things that you had to overcome while you was trying to put in these initiatives and make things better. And isn't that what God used us to do? I always feel like this: if God bring it to your doorstep and you're believing him, he wants you to deal with it. Because if it's coming to your doorstep, it was at a whole lot of other people's doorstep and they didn't deal with it. So a lot of people got hurt. And if we don't deal with it right now, that it came to our doorstep, it's going to a whole lot of more people going to get hurt. So just being able to say, you know what? I'm a man of God. I'm a woman of God. No, it's going to stop right here because God brought it to me. How was it? What happened to make you say, you know what? Nobody's addressing this elephant in the room. I'm going to do it. What type of courage, what kind of conversation did you have with yourself or the Lord that helped you to say, you know what? I got to do it. I got to check it. I know I'm going to get some pushback, or what was it that made you say, you know what? I don't care what comes with it. I'm doing it. What was that?
Well, I think that my faith in God early on, right? And to do this job or to do law, be a law enforcement officer effectively, I just think that you have to, for me, I had to hold on to my belief in God, right? I had to pray about the things and decisions to make sure it wasn't just my decision, that I was actually doing his work. But his work was for me to serve people. And I know that he wants everyone to have a life of abundance. So I um, worked at the police department and gave out tasks and things with that in mind, right? And so you're absolutely right when you said that everyone had seen, a lot of people had seen that there was an issue before I saw that there was an issue. But I've always been the person, and I'm not going to say that challenge the status quo, but in a meeting, I will always be the person that's going to ask questions. Someone told me as a little girl, I was always a little girl that asked why we did whatever we did. And I guess I grew up to be the woman to ask those same questions, but just probably ask them differently than I did as a child. And I always wanted to know, like, you couldn't tell me that we do this. I'm going to ask you, why do we do it? And then I have to think about the consequences to our actions, like everything that I implemented in place. Now, I have to be honest. Sometimes my interaction with people of getting these things done, I look back on it now that I'm outside of it. And I wish I could go back and have a do-over, right? You know how some things that you do in life, you're saying like, I could have gotten this done, but I could have done it differently, right? And maybe I've made someone feel uncomfortable or like they were not valued, but that was never my intentions. And I know that God knew my heart. And I asked him to show me the way, to show me how to write the initiative, or show me how to communicate it effectively. Because a lot of times it's not what we say, it's how we say it, whether people receive it well. So I knew that I wanted my legacy to be one of service and protection of the people that I serve, right? I wanted people to remember me in the community, that when I showed up and when I left, that they were still whole, that I didn't leave them in a place. And I've even said to some people that's on the job that if I remember a situation and say, I think about that now, right? I go back, right? And say, hey, I just want to make sure that like you're okay. And I do understand that some of my trauma and hurt actually was projected out on you. Like that's what you do, because when you are a God-fearing man or a woman, it does not mean that you're not going to make mistakes along the way. But it's when you identify those things, correct it, to know not to do it to the next person, but go back and ask for forgiveness for the person, because actually forgiveness is really for the person that's doing the forgiving. I just don't want anyone to be stuck in life because of some interaction that they had with me. And that has not always gone over, well, because sometimes I've spoken out against things and people in law enforcement have like blacklisted me in the law enforcement community because I stepped out against discrimination and said, not on my watch, right? I'm supposed to do that. God placed me in that job to do that. And I could not think about like self-serving or self-preservation didn't kick in, that I thought about, I need to be okay because God has always made a way for me. And I knew that whatever happened as a consequence to me stepping up, that he was going to continue to make a way for me.
That's what we need to believe as believers. We try to do too many things in our own strength, our own ability, and we try to take care of ourselves. We're trying to provide for ourselves, and we don't realize God is there. He's always been there. He's always been faithful. He's always made a way out of no way. He's always provided what we needed. After we finally surrendered our own effort and our own strength and our own wisdom and our own limited knowledge, then we say, okay, Lord, I can't figure it out. You can help me now. And when we remember that we're not showing up alone, that we are vessels for the Lord, and he wants willing vessels. He don't want us to tell him what to do and tell him to follow us. He wants us to tell us what to do, and we follow him. And when we don't let God get behind us, but we stay behind God, a lot of things that we're dealing with, we wouldn't have to deal with if we would just let God take the lead and we would use God's word, God's way, and God's love to do the things that he's called us to do. I'm telling you, life is hard. It is hard, but it can get a lot easier if we lean, depend, and trust and rest in God. And that's where we miss it. And the things that we're doing in our careers or in our businesses or in our churches or wherever God may send us, we just need to let people know the same God that's helping me can help you. And he
Yes.
is no
Yes.
respect of persons, and he's not requiring any of us to have a perfect walk. He's not requiring any of us to do everything right. He loved us while we were yet sinners. He died on that cross for all of us. Even we were trying to get more sin to do, he was still down on that cross for us, and he got up so we can get up. And I just thank God for you. I thank God for your years of service. I thank God what you continue to do for the Lord and the things that he's called you to do. It has just been a joy and a pleasure to have this fellowship time with you. You can call it the interview if you want, but I call it fellowship. We
Fellowship.
just had a conversation and we just enjoyed, talking about the goodness of the Lord and the ways that he's allowed us to, to give him glory and allow him to let others know that he is there. He is a help in the time of trouble, and that whatever you need, he's there, and all you have to do is call out for him. So please tell us, what you're doing, how, the name of your organization, how people can reach you, and what can we do to help you support what you're doing. So just tell us, take your time and just share that.
No. Thank you. Thank you. Chief Chanel Dickerson, LLC, home of Chief Chanel Speaks. My website is Chief Chanel Speaks with the S on the end, speaks.com. And you can follow me on social media at I am Chief Chanel. So for helping me help others, because that's really what it is about. To get the word out, like send people to the site, whether people want the coaching services or you have a youth group that you want me to talk to your youth group, whether it's foster care or just some young people about the dangers of social media and what you put on social media, right? So a lot of people need to think about what you put out there is out there. So if you have a speaking engagement that you want me to just come and talk to any group, although I focus on women and girls, I'm open to speak to anyone because we all just trying to live this thing called life, right? And so we all need tools to help navigate in this area. I focus on women and girls because I am a woman and I've lived through my time as a girl, but I'm willing to help anyone. The last thing that I'll talk about is like missing person plans. That is my latest thing. I have a panel discussion this evening about finding our missing girls. And I asked the question to your audience, do you have a missing persons plan? What if you found out today that your loved one was missing? What would you do? Who would you call? Would you know what to expect from your local police department? Do you have a good photo to give to your police department for them to make a flyer? See, it's all of those things. I have all this wealth of knowledge. I do consulting work. So if any organization want me to come in and consult, whether it's security for your organization or how to tap into self-care for your employees, I actually do that because I believe that if you prioritize self-care, only then can you be whole to be able to help anyone else. So
it is just so amazing. You have shared a lot of information, a lot of behind the scenes stuff that many people don't know about law enforcement or, what goes into good leadership. You shared a lot of wonderful things. And it's beautiful to see that you were able to have these positions in law enforcement and still take the Lord with you. That is just so precious. And I've had the opportunity to walk with other believing police officers in Baltimore County, where I used to live in Gwinnett Oak, Maryland. And we were doing this community thing, supporting one of the organizations in the community that was helping people not become victims of domestic violence, especially young people become victims of domestic violence. And we were doing a walk through the community with this branch of the police department. It was chiefs and other people, other officers there. And I got a chance to walk with one of the large, higher up policemen. And we just talked about the Lord the whole time. It was just so beautiful. And all I can say is just keep letting the Lord use you. The Lord is well pleased with you. Your gifts and your talents and abilities strategies have really made room for you, and it's blessed all of us while you've used them. And just continue to do what you do. And thank you so much for coming on. Your gifts will make room for you with Cheryl T. Ricks. You take care, girl. God bless
Okay,
you.
you too. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Hello, everyone. This is Cheryl T. Ricks. And I have been through so many amazing things in my life. The good, the bad, the ugly. The hard, the easy, the joyful, and the sad. And as life, go from day to day, we find ourselves in some difficult places mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically at times. And I just wanted to get on this video and share some encouragement, the kind of encouragement that I was given so that I could keep going through the trials of life and actually enjoy the journey. I wrote this book called Rest in God, How to Keep Living When Life Get Hard. And I wanted to share an excerpt of it with you. I'll start with the preface, which is the Cheryl T. Ricks story part 2, and it reads as follows. As I mentioned in my first book, Sister Circle, The Power of Sisterhood, A Guide to Becoming the Woman God Designed You to Be, life can be very difficult, and those difficulties do a work in us like nothing else can. In the first part of my life, I survived domestic violence, a mental health breakdown, and no self-esteem. In the second part of my life, I discovered my purpose, which is the greatest discovery a person can make. When we learn what we are created to do, we get on a road called destiny and purpose. That road is not a journey for the faint of hearts. When we step out on faith and pursue the dream and passion that God has put in our hearts, we will face trials, tribulations, and challenges that will make us question whether we're doing the right thing. On my road to destiny and purpose, I faced the foreclosure of my home, being diagnosed with skin cancer and breast cancer, being sued by a debt collector, and bankruptcy. But God made the worst part of my life the best part of my life. God gave me a true village. During that most difficult time, I learned how many people in my life truly loved and cared about me. It was amazing to see how much love, support, encouragement, assistance, resources, help, hope, and enjoyment my family, friends, and even strangers gave me during the seemingly darkest time of my life. I continued to live my life in spite of what I was going through. I decided not to make my circumstances my life. I resolved to keep enjoying my life and the people and things I always had. I reminded myself how blessed I was and how awesome my life still was, even though I had these situations. I took everything to God and allowed Him to walk me through those challenges like He done for every other problem I faced in my life. I trusted His unconditional love for me and the promises in His Word. I held on to my faith in God, who I was in Him, and the plan He had for my life. I believed He would bring me through everything I was going through, and I was going to be the better for having gone through it, and I was. You see, faith, love, and hope make life and everything else possible. Without these three things, a joy-filled and satisfying life is not obtainable. But more importantly, we must receive the true love of God, keep our faith in Him, and hold on to the hope that God created us for much more than we can see in our current situation. God's word ensures us that God is able to bring us through. But Jesus looked at them and said to them, with men, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible. Matthew 19:26. Life is full of many ups and downs, trials and tribulations. When our lives are up, we're happy, but when our lives are down, we're unhappy and depressed. I have been going through hardship, difficulty, heartache, and pain my whole life. In my early years, my situations dictated whether I was going to be happy or whether I was going to be sad, whether I was going to enjoy my life or whether I felt like my life wasn't worth living. In my middle years, I learned that there was a way to go through life and have a choice about how my problems, circumstances, or situations would affect how I enjoyed my life. Today, in spite of having breast cancer and losing one of my breasts, going through months of treatment for skin cancer, the foreclosure of my home, being sued, and filing bankruptcy, I have managed to live my best life yet. The purpose of this book is to show you how you too can live your life while living through some of the most difficult situations a person can face. My faith in God, His love, His word, His hope, and His promises have allowed me to keep living, loving, and serving my way to my most enjoyable life so far. No one likes heartache and suffering. However, if you're going through a difficult time right now in your life, I can guarantee 4 things. 1, you are uncomfortable. 2, it's painful in some way. 3, you're resisting what the situation is creating in you. And 4, you're missing the blessing in the midst of your difficult situation. When we are going through painful places, we don't realize that they're changing us from the inside out. They are also preparing us for blessings that are too amazing to believe. So come with me on a journey to discover how to enjoy your life while facing the most challenging times of your life. If you can relate to any of those things, this would be a great book to read for encouragement and hope. You can get it at any bookstore, Barnes & Nobles, iTunes, Amazon, any bookstore at all that has the paperback copy, and it also has the ebook copy. If you'd like to reach out to me, you can reach out to me by email at CherylRicks2759@gmail.com. CherylRicks2759@gmail.com. I would love to share with you and hear from you, and we can find out ways that we can be a blessing to each other. So until the next video, keep your head up. God is able to help you no matter what's going on in your life. Your dreams are still possible. The goals that you set are still reachable. You just need to have faith in God to make it happen. Take care.